If you ever rent a chalet in Courchevel and the listing photos look too perfect, the fireplace a little too warm, the windows a little too clear, the snow outside a little too untouched, don't book it. If you've already booked it, if you've already picked up the key from the lockbox, if you've already stepped inside and told yourself, wow, this looks even better in person, I'm sorry, that's where I am. I'm sitting in a wooden chair that isn't mine, in a living room decorated like someone's idea of an alpine fantasy. Reclaimed wood beams, fake fur blankets, tasteful abstract art that's supposed to imply mountains without actually showing them. The air smells like pine, even though the fire burning in the hearth is gas. It should feel safe, warm, expensive in the way that tricks your brain into relaxing. It doesn't, because every reflective surface in this chalet is lying to me. That's not metaphorical. That's not trauma. That's not poetic language. The mirrors, every single one, show a version of me I don't recognize. Not at first. At first it was small, a tilt of my head I didn't actually make, a smile that lingered after mine dropped. Eyes a fraction too wide, too bright, too focused. Then it got worse. But I should start at the beginning. People always want beginnings, right? As if lining events up in order will make the horror logical, understandable, containable. Fine, here's my beginning. I went to Courchevel because I needed to run away from myself. It was one of those decisions made at 2:17 a.m. after too much scrolling and too much thinking and not enough breathing. A week in the Alps, alone. Ski a little, drink a little, stare at snow until my brain quiets down. That kind of trip. The listing was for Chalet Souverain, perched near Courchevel, 1,650. The photos were gorgeous, too gorgeous. If I'd been thinking clearly. Huge windows, soft golden light, untouched snow outside every pane. A bedroom that looked like a magazine spread. But what got me was the mirrors. Every room had one, framed in pale wood, spotless, positioned perfectly to catch morning light. Something about them made me feel like I could see myself clearly again. Maybe that should have been the first red flag. I booked it, paid in full, didn't even read the reviews, which, for the record, vanished 2 days later. But I'll get to that. Courchevel was overwhelming. If you've never been, imagine a luxury version of reality, where everything is too sharp, too glamorous, too curated. Expensive coats, expensive sunglasses, expensive champagne at noon, because ski culture is secretly drunk 90% of the time. I took the shuttle up from the station. Snow fell in soft, lazy flakes, storybook snow, the kind that feels staged, for tourism, for illusion, for drawing you into a place that isn't actually real. The chalet was perched halfway up a slope, reachable by a narrow path carved through tall banks of snow. The key was waiting in a lockbox, just like the instructions said. Inside, everything looked exactly like the listing photos. Exactly. Not similar. Not same furniture. I mean identical, as if the photographer had taken them 5 minutes before I walked in. And the mirrors. There was one across from the entryway. I dropped my suitcase and looked into it, half expecting to see travel exhaustion written all over my face. Instead, my reflection looked composed, centered, serene in a way I absolutely wasn't. My hair was neater, my posture straighter, my expression softer. I blinked. So did the reflection, a half second late. Just long enough that something cold curled in my chest. I laughed it off. Jet lag, bad lighting, too much caffeine. Take your pick. I explored the chalet, unpacked, took photos for friends I would never send, and poured myself a glass of wine. Every time I passed a mirror, I glanced at the reflection. Every time, it looked almost me. Almost. The differences were subtle. A shift in my shoulders. A calm I didn't feel. A faint smile that wasn't on my face. You know how you can tell instantly when someone is wearing your expression? how it feels wrong, even if you can't articulate why. That's how it felt. Wrong in a soft, quiet way. Wrong in a way that waits. That night, I slept badly, and the next morning is when things really started to unravel. I woke up to silence. Not peaceful silence, vacuum silence. The kind where your ears strain for something familiar and find nothing. No distant cars, no wind, no footsteps from neighboring chalets, just the muted hum of the heating system and my own pulse. For a moment, I didn't know where I was. Then, the knot of dread in my stomach reminded me. Courchevel, chalet souverain, mirrors that watched too closely. I rolled out of bed, feet hitting cold wooden floorboards, and padded to the bathroom. That was the first real incident. The one I can't explain without feeling my skin crawl all over again. I flipped on the light. The mirror above the sink lit up from behind one of those fancy built-in LED frames. It should have made me look better. Softened, airbrushed. Instead, it made the reflection sharper. I leaned in, splashed water on my face, then looked up. My reflection didn't. It kept staring straight ahead, eyes locked on mine, even though my head was still bent forward. A full half-second passed. Then it lifted its head to match me. Perfectly, except for the eyes. They were too clear, too awake, too focused. Like the reflection had been up for hours, waiting. I jerked back, heart hammering. The reflection jerked back a moment later, a delayed echo. I stood there, gripping the edge of the sink, breathing like I'd just sprinted uphill. "Stop," I whispered, because when people are scared, they talk to empty rooms. My reflection's mouth didn't move, not even a twitch, but the corners of its lips relaxed, the faintest hint of a smile. Knowing, I switched off the light and stumbled out of the bathroom, like turning off the mirror also turned off whatever was inside it. I told myself it was exhaustion, a sleep hallucination, the LED lights messing with my perception. But deep down, a colder explanation was settling like frost. The mirrors weren't reflecting me. They were studying me, learning me, waiting. I did the adult, rational thing people always brag about doing. I ignored it. I put on my ski gear. I made coffee. I checked the weather report. I told myself getting outside would fix everything. Sunlight, skiing, movement, crowds, noise, reality. The gondola station was a 5-minute walk, down stone steps carved into the hillside. The air was sharp, bright, cold enough to sting my lungs. People bustled everywhere, families clumping together, instructors herding kids, couples posing for photos with the mountains behind them. Normal, normal, normal. But even surrounded by life, I couldn't stop thinking about the mirrors. The too smooth expressions, the too slow timing, the sense that my reflection wasn't mirroring me but practicing me. I shook my head hard, trying to clear it. It didn't clear. I took an easy blue run to warm up. Snow sprayed under my skis in soft arcs. The cold air slapped at my face in the best possible way. My muscles remembered the pattern. Weight forward, knees loose, turn, breathe. For 20 minutes, I actually felt okay. Like whatever had happened in the chalet was just one of those weird travel morning glitches your brain sometimes does. Then I reached the bottom lift station, and I saw her, me, inside the glass wall of the lift terminal. At first, I thought it was just my reflection, distorted by the angle. Glass can curve weird sometimes, especially with sunlight behind you, but the reflection wasn't me. She stood a few inches to the left of where I was standing. Her head was tilted in a way mine wasn't, and her smile. She was smiling. I wasn't. My face was blank, cold, half numb from the wind. Hers was warm, interested, like she was watching someone she'd been waiting to meet. My breath fogged the glass. Hers didn't. I stepped backward. The reflection stepped forward, perfectly aligned with the moment I would have moved if I had chosen the opposite direction. like it was showing me the version of myself I had almost become. Like it was a branching path, a different me, a better me. No, not better, just smoother, simplified, predicted, expected. I did the only thing a terrified person pretending to be sane can do. I looked away and pretended I saw nothing, but the whole gondola ride up the mountain, I couldn't shake the image of that other me, smiling like she knew something I didn't, something I was about to learn. When I returned that evening, the sun already sinking behind the ridgeline, the chalet looked wrong, too warm, too inviting, like a mouth smiling in the dark. Inside, every mirror gleamed softly in the low light, waiting. I hung up my coat, took off my boots, tried not to look at any reflections, but when you try not to look, you look. Just a glance, just a flicker, just enough to see that in the entryway mirror, my reflection wasn't sitting down to unbuckle boots like I was. She was already standing, already watching me, already still, like she'd been in the room the entire time. I closed my eyes, opened them again. She hadn't moved, but her expression had a small, knowing tilt of her head, as if to say, "Welcome back. We're not done yet." I didn't throw anything. That's the part that bothers me when I replay it. You always think, if a mirror did something like that, I'd smash it, I'd cover it, I'd walk out and never come back. You don't. You're tired. Your legs hurt. You're in a foreign country. Your stuff is here. You've paid too much money, and your brain is very good at saying, "It's just stress. It's just light. It's just me." So I walked past her, past me, and went into the kitchen. There was another mirror there, smaller, decorative, framed in pale wood to match the aesthetic. When I glanced at it, my reflection was already in place, as if it had been waiting. She lifted a glass of wine. I hadn't poured one yet. My hands were empty. I watched, heartbeat stuttering in my throat, as she tipped the glass toward the bottom corner of the frame in a tiny, mocking toast. Then she froze. Like the playback had paused, I stood there, in the too quiet kitchen, staring at this still version of myself in an action I hadn't taken yet. I don't know how long I stood there. Eventually, because humans are stupid, I opened the cupboard, pulled out a glass, and poured myself wine. My reflection resumed motion the instant the wine hit the glass. One smooth, continuous movement, like she'd just been waiting for me to catch up. I set the glass down so hard, some spilled onto the counter. "Okay," I said. My voice sounded thin and too high. "Okay, enough." The reflection mouthed the word with me, except she didn't look scared. She looked amused. End quote. I didn't sleep in the bedroom that night. Something about the full-length mirror on the closet door freaked me out too much. I could feel it, even lying with my back to it, like a cold draft you can't block. So I dragged the duvet out to the living room and made a nest on the couch. There was a television across from it. Above the television, another mirror. Of course there was. I turned my back on it and left a lamp on. Sleep came in thin, jagged pieces. Every time I woke up, I had that sensation you get when someone is standing over you, staring. I never checked. Cowardice, I've decided, is underrated. It keeps you alive longer. Maybe if I'd looked that night, this would have ended differently. Or faster. Or both. Predict. Morning looked normal. That's how it gets you. Sunlight on clean snow. The distant whine of a lift. A snowplow beeping as it cleared the lane. I made coffee, toast. Stood at the window and watched people on the slope across the valley. Tiny colored dots snaking downhill. Everything was fine, except I couldn't see my own reflection in the glass. Not faintly. Not distorted. Not at all. The room was bright enough. I should have seen at least the outline of my head. Instead, the chalet interior stopped at the window frame. Beyond that, pure exterior. Like the glass was a screen, not a surface. The mirrors still showed me. Too much of me. But the windows? Nothing. I held up a hand experimentally. Snow, trees, sky, no hand. I stepped closer until my nose almost touched the glass. Outside, a skier paused mid-slope, adjusting their binding. Inside, no trace of me. I backed away, skin crawling. The bathroom mirror greeted me like an old friend. I say greeted because that's what it felt like walking into a room where someone has been waiting for you to arrive. Stop it, I told it. Told her, told me. She smiled. I didn't. 80. You're probably wondering why I didn't leave. I did, or I tried. I packed a bag, shoved my passport into my pocket, grabbed my boots without bothering to zip them. I didn't care about the rest of my gear. I'd call the rental company from somewhere else. I'd say there was a leak, or a wiring problem, or an emergency at home. The front door had a small mirror hung next to it. I avoided it on my way out. I took the stone steps too fast, nearly slipping. My breath smoked in the air. The village road stretched below, lined with chalets and boutiques and rental shops. Cars, people, life. It looked like salvation. I walked down. Each step felt wrong, not heavy, out of sync, like my body was half a beat behind itself. I passed another chalet. Its living room window reflected the snowbank, the street, a child pulling a sled. Not me. I kept going. 3 more chalets. No reflection. A parked car with tinted windows. No reflection. A boutique window full of designer ski jackets. Nothing. It was like I'd been edited out, like I was no longer part of the world's rendering. Just a camera, floating. By the time I reached the main street, my heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I beelined for a bar. Not a cute, cozy one. I wanted something noisy, bright, packed. I found one. Inside, sweaty people in base layers leaned over high tables, clinking glasses. Music thumped. A football match played silently on a TV in the corner. Steam fogged the windows. A long mirror ran behind the bar, doubling the bottles, the customers, the movement. I headed straight for it, like a moth to a flame. The bartender looked up. "What can I get you?" he asked, in accented English. My throat clicked. Just a second. I stood at the bar and stared at the mirror. People moved in it. The bartender polishing a glass. A woman laughing too loud, head thrown back. A guy in a beanie gesturing with his beer like he was conducting the conversation. No me. There was a gap where I should have been. A blank column of nothing between the figures. The space existed. People's reflections went around it, but there was no corresponding person. Only when I focused hard, so hard my eyes watered, did I see something like a shadow, like a placeholder, a human-shaped smear, out of phase with the rest of reality. I raised a hand. The smear didn't. But in my mind, no, not my mind. Deeper, behind my eyes, I felt the motion echoed a half-second later, like something on the other side was following the command. "Hey!" The bartender's voice cut through the buzzing in my ears. "You okay?" I tore my gaze away. His face crumpled briefly into concern. "You look like you're gonna pass out." "I'm fine," I lied. Just need some water." He handed me a glass. His fingers brushed mine. For a moment, his pupils dilated unnaturally wide. His expression slackened, then smoothed out. And in a voice that wasn't his too familiar, too practiced, he said, very softly, "Tell them I'm almost ready." My hand spasmed. The glass slipped. Water splashed across the bar. "What?" I whispered. He blinked. "Careful," he said, back to normal. "You okay? You want to sit down?" I left. I didn't run. That would have made it real. I walked, very calmly, out of the bar, up the street, past the shops, back toward the hill. By the time I reached the chalet steps, my legs were numb. I told myself I was being dramatic, that I was having some kind of episode, that I needed to lie down, drink water, call a therapist, not a priest. The mirrors inside the chalet were bright with daylight, catching every angle. As I stepped into the entryway, my reflection was already waiting, centered in the frame, facing me dead on, smiling, intense. You know that feeling when someone has been talking about you in a room before you walk in? Everyone's faces just a fraction too arranged. Their eyes clocking you, tracking you, evaluating how much you've heard. That's how the mirrors felt. Not like glass, like a crowd. Watching, the entryway mirror showed me standing in the doorway. Except I hadn't dropped my bag yet. The version of me in the glass had. It lay at her feet, strap twisted. She lifted a hand and tucked a stray piece of hair behind her ear. I didn't. I froze. She smiled wider, then stepped back. Not much, just one small, casual step, like she was making room for someone else to join her. And in that split second of space behind her, in the depth of the reflection that shouldn't exist, I saw rooms, other chalets, other versions of this same living room, this same window, this same fireplace, and in each one, at different distances, different angles, me, almost me, not me. Hands moving when mine weren't, faces twisted in fear or calm or anger. One with a bandage over her eye, one with her hair buzzed short, one in a heavy sweater I didn't own, one with blood on her shirt, drying in a stiff rust patch across the chest. Then the crowd snapped back into a single figure. Just me, smiling. It's spirit. I didn't scream. Screaming feels like something you do when there's someone to hear you. Instead, I went into the living room, sat down in the chair I'm in now, and did the one thing you do when something has its hands around your life. I made a deal with myself. I'd stay one more night, just one. I'd avoid the mirrors as much as possible. I'd sleep. In the morning, I'd call the rental agency, make up some excuse, and get the hell out. Take the earliest train I could find. Go home. Explain none of this to anyone. Reality would reassert itself. It had to, because if it didn't, then the version of me in the mirror was right, and I didn't know which was worse, that she was something else, or that she was exactly what I'd become if I kept pretending everything was fine. It speared. The chalet at night became a maze of strategically averted eyes. I learned the angles quickly. Don't look left in the hallway. Don't look up in the living room. Don't look straight ahead in the bathroom. Keep your gaze slightly down, slightly off, slightly away, as if eye contact itself was an invitation. The few times I slipped, the reflections were always ahead, not mirroring me, demonstrating me. I'd bend to pick something up. She'd already straightened. I'd go to turn off a light. Her hand was already on the switch. Tiny anticipations, tiny predictions, tiny corrections. Like watching a rehearsal of your own life half a beat before you live it. I tried testing it. I sat on the couch with a notebook and wrote a word. Jump. Then, without warning, I sprang up from the couch. In the mirror, I was already standing, waiting for the move I'd decided on. It wasn't just copying my actions. It was reading my intent. That's when I made the second deal with myself. If I saw anything in the mirrors that I couldn't logically dismiss, not timing issues, not minor posture differences, not uncanny smiles, but something concrete, physical, impossible, I'd break them. All of them. I'm not a violent person. I've never punched a wall or thrown a plate. But some part of me, the part that still believed in cause and effect, believed that glass is just glass. Smash it, and it stops reflecting. So that was the line. If things got worse, I'd stop them. You're ahead of me, aren't you? You know how that went. In nest. The final night, I think it was the final night. Time gets muddy here. I woke up on the couch with the strong, nauseating certainty that someone was in the room. The fire had gone out. The only light came from the faint blue glow sneaking in through the window. Outside, the snow reflected moonlight, like a dim, frozen mirror of its own. I stayed very still. I could hear breathing, not mine. Slow, even, familiar. I turned my head as little as I could. The TV screen was black. In it, a reflection. Not of the room behind me, of the room I was in, but lit differently, warmer, clearer. And sitting in the chair where I am now, in that other version of the room, me, wide awake, elbows on knees, staring straight at the couch where my body lay. She lifted a hand in a small, slow wave. I didn't move. The breathing in the real room stayed steady. My own breath felt like it belonged to someone else. She stood up. In the reflection, the living room was bright, as if it were afternoon. She walked toward the TV, toward me, with the casual ease of someone who knew every inch of the space. As she approached, details sharpened. Her hair was neater, her eyes clearer. She looked healthier than I felt, more solid, less frayed. She stopped just short of the imaginary line where the TV frame would be. And up close, I saw it. My reflection was not standing in front of glass. She was standing in front of a window. Another chalet, another world. Snow piled against the sill behind her. A run I didn't recognize, cutting across the mountain in the background. Other silhouettes behind her, briefly visible in the blur. Other mez. Some sitting, some pacing, some with their backs turned. She glanced over her shoulder, as if checking they were all still in place. Then she stepped closer, up to the very edge of the screen. Our faces aligned. "For what it's worth," she said, and I felt the words inside my head more than I heard them with my ears. "You did book it." Her lips moved. I felt my own tingle, half a beat behind. "You clicked confirm," she went on. "You scrolled through the photos. You saw us. You wanted clarity." Something hot and helpless rose in my chest. I forced my mouth to work. "What are you?" I croaked. Her smile was almost kind. "Efficient," she said. "We used to do this one at a time. Now." She lifted her hand and tapped the inside of the screen. Once. The TV went dead. Not just black. Dead. The room snapped back to cold, empty darkness. The breathing stopped. I was alone, if I ever really wasn't, and quiet. This is the part where I made good on my promise. I broke a mirror. Not dramatically, not cinematic. I walked into the bathroom, picked up the little wastebasket, and swung. The sound was sharp and bright. A gunshot in glass. Shards exploded outward, clattering into the sink, onto the tile. A crack lanced up the wall like a lightning strike. My reflection shattered into 100 jagged fragments. For 1 second, everything felt normal. Relief surged a wild, manic high. Then the shards twitched. Not slid, not fell, twitched, like a muscle under skin. Each piece aligned, micro-adjusting, until every splinter showed a slightly different version of me. Not reflections, angles, lives. One shard showed me standing outside a different chalet, suitcase in hand. Another, me laughing in a bar with strangers. Another, me skiing a run I've never taken. Another, me sitting at a kitchen table writing something long and frantic. Another, me underwater, bubbles escaping my mouth, hands reaching for a surface that wasn't there. My stomach lurched. I stumbled back, boots crunching on glass. The shards stopped moving. The images froze. Every single me looked directly at me. Every single me smiled. I left the bathroom. I didn't turn off the light. And quite. You want to know how I got stuck here? You think there's a single moment a door closed, a wrong step, a contract signed in metaphorical blood. There isn't. It's 1,000 tiny surrenders. One for every time you say, "It's probably nothing." One for every time you see a red flag and say, "But it's convenient." One for every moment you choose ease over escape. I didn't fall through a portal. I didn't get dragged into a mirror. I stayed. I stayed when the reflections started moving wrong. I stayed when the windows stopped showing me. I stayed when the bartender spoke with a borrowed voice. I stayed when my own life started looking like one of many test runs. And the chalet noticed. The system noticed. Whatever sits behind all this glass, watching, noticed. Here is my best guess. Stitched together from fear and logic and too much time thinking. Chalet Souverain isn't special. Not really. It's a node. A point in a network of places where reality gets thin, and something, watches the people who slip through, tests their reactions, catalogs their choices, runs simulations of what they might do if pushed this way or that. Those listing photos that looked too perfect? Not staged. Observed. Snapshots from other runs, other stays, other lives. The mirrors weren't reflecting me. They were matching me to a nearby version, an almost me. A test case close enough to predict behavior. That's why the timing was off. That's why she sometimes moved before I did. She wasn't ahead in the moment. She was ahead in the data set. A slightly more efficient outcome. A slightly better optimized me. And once I walked into the space where all those outcomes converge, I stopped being the only version. Now, I think I'm one of many. Sometimes I catch glimpses of them in the metal of a spoon, the black of a powered-off screen, the curve of a door handle, flashes, a hand raised to knock, a mouth shouting silently, eyes squeezed shut, eyes wide open, all of us trapped inside different chalets that are really the same chalet, in different passes through the same story. And somewhere, behind all those panes of glass, something patient is watching the way we break. In fact, you're probably wondering if I ever left. I did. At least, I think I did. I remember packing. I remember calling the agency and saying there was a leak. I remember dragging my suitcase through the slush. I remember the shuttle, the train, the blur of landscapes. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I remember getting home, my own bed, my own cheap mirror from a discount store, my own exhausted face looking back at me. But then I blink, and I'm here again, in the same wooden chair, in front of the same fake fire, in the same chalet that may not exist on any map anymore. I've checked, tried to refine the listing, tried different spellings, tried scrolling back through old emails, old confirmations, old bank charges. The name appears as a blank line now. The charges as accommodation. The link to the photos goes nowhere. But I don't need the internet to prove it existed. I have the mirrors. They're very clear, very honest. About some things, I can see you in them, if I look just right. Not your face, your posture, the way you sit when you listen too hard, the way you lean in when something scares you, the way your hand hovers over a trackpad or a phone screen when you're about to click on something you know you shouldn't. Another almost version. Another line in the dataset. Another chalet somewhere. Waiting. Maybe it's not in Courchevel for you. Maybe it's a lakeside cabin, or a city apartment, or a cheap hotel room with a mirror bolted to the wall. The location is just the skin. Underneath, it's the same structure. A space. Some reflective surfaces. And a watcher. You want advice? Here it is. If you ever see yourself in a mirror, and the timing is slightly off, if your reflection seems calmer than you feel, if, in some hotel, or rental, or stranger's house, you catch your double looking not at you but past you, like they're tracking something you can't see, don't test it. Don't play. Don't wait for it to get bad enough to be sure. Don't say, if it does this one more time, then I'll leave. Just go. Leave the bag. Leave the deposit. Leave the explanation. There are worse things than being paranoid and embarrassed and out some money. You could end up like me, sitting in a room that keeps resetting, telling a story that keeps retelling itself, watching yourself through too many panes of glass, knowing that somewhere, just out of sight, something is deciding which version of you it likes best. And once it settles on one, the others are just reflections, background, noise, ghosts in the silver backing, in this room, in this chair, in this chalet that may or may not be in Courchevel, France. The mirrors are very still right now. I can feel them listening. I don't know if this will reach you as a recording, a video, a story you put on in the dark while you scroll, or just a bad dream you can't quite shake. If it does reach you, if it manages to slip between worlds the way images slip between glass, remember this: you're not just looking at a screen, it's looking back. So when you close this, when you turn off the light, when you walk into your bathroom, or past your hallway mirror, or lean over your phone and see your own face reflected black and faint, check the timing, see who moves first. And if it isn't you, leave the room, because that's not a reflection, that's a replacement, and it is so tired of waiting its turn.